Tom Williams leads the Bulldogs of Yale. Quarterback Brooke Hart, who's a southpaw. They lose 5 key offensive linemen. This looks like a rebuilding year for him. They lose Mike McLeod, their leading rusher. Jordan Forney, their wide receiver, is back. It was a decent bright spot on offense for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, the veteran wide receiver group, you got, Jordan Forney, but also Peter Balsam. Keep an eye on him. 24.9 yards per catch. He's a legitimate deep threat, so they're going to look to lean on him a little bit more, get more chances down the field. I like quarterback Brooke Hart. 62% completion percentage, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Now that he's a new guy, he's coming in. Look for him to increase his production. They have to find a replacement for Mike McLeod, who was a phenomenal running back all 4 years for Yale. That's tough to replace. That's a big hole to fill.
5 starters return on defense. Only 10.5 points per game they gave up last year. Like to play that low-scoring game. Strong safety Larry Abare is their star on defense.
Well, they're making this with the new head coach. They're making a move to a different defense. They're going from a 5-2 to a 4-3. So it may be a little bit of adjustment period for those guys. But defensive tackle Tom McCarthy, 4 sacks, awesome playmaker. He's a real good player. He might be the defensive player of the year in the Ivy League. He's that type of player. You look at the linebackers, big question mark. Who's going to play linebacker at Yale? That's a big question mark I have for those guys. If they can figure that out, they might make some noise to challenge the top 2.
That 10.5 points per game on defense given up is bound to shoot up.
Right.
The Cornell Big Red, Jim Knowles, 8 returning starters. He's in his 6th season, coming up a 4-6 year. Stephen Louisa replaces Nathan Ford. Shane Savage was injured last year. Look for him to compete and maybe get some time. Randy Barber is their running back, and they have 2 pretty good right side of the offensive line in guard Andrew Bull and Quentin Bernhard, the right tackle.
Well, one thing they have to improve that running game up there in Cornell is a weakness. They have to find a bell cow to hand the ball to because it gets cold up there. October and November. They have to figure out what they're going to do with their running game. The offensive line has to step up huge. We need the left side to step up as well to match the right side. And quarterback Ben Ganti has to carry this team. He's going to be the leader of that offense. So look for him to carry that team on as a quarterback.
3-3-5 defensive system. They went from giving up 30 points a game in 2007 to only 24.5 last year, which is a good improvement. They get their leading tackler back, middle linebacker Chris Costello, and help out in the secondary is Amani Felton.
Well, outside of Chris Costello, no pass rush, and they do not create enough turnovers. Those 2 elements will get you beat in any level of football, especially in the Ivy League where you have a lot of good players, solid players across the board. They have to find a pass rush, otherwise the defense is going to struggle. Chris Costello, 90 tackles last season. He's a dynamite player for those guys. So they have to get more, more talent around him, more talent on that defensive side of the football to compete in the Ivy League.
From the Big Red to the Big Green, no, these are not brands of gum. We are naming the Dartmouth Big Green. Buddy Tevens, miserable year last year. He's in his 5th season. They were 0-10 last year. 11 returning starters. Alex Jenny, their quarterback, is back though. Connor Kemp, their backup also. 3 returning offensive linemen. Tim McManus, a wide receiver, is their go-to guy.
One thing that stands out, and I'm going to attack it wholeheartedly, 1.8 yards per carry last season. Wow. They have to find a running back, and they have to generate some type of offense running the football. You look at quarterback Alex Jenny, he has to continue to improve. He's a solid player, but he has to get better, week in, week out. Also, they have an experienced offensive line in the interior, from guard to guard. They're real solid. From left guard to right guard, that's the heart of their team. So there's a real good interior offensive line. I like that. Converted quarterback Tim McManus was the top playmaker last season at wide receiver, but they have to find somebody to run the football. Somebody has to figure out the running game up there in order for them to be successful.
-12 in turnover differential. That's a big problem. Defensive end Charles Bay, the defensive will anchor the defensive line, and they are high on Diego Fernandez Soto, their up-and-coming sophomore linebacker.
And you look at last year, they gave up 34 points a game. Quarterbacks completed 68% of their passes. That's ridiculous. That has to drop down dramatically. They gave up 5.5 yards a carry to opposing running backs. That has to improve. Also, they didn't generate any sacks. Last year they struggled getting to the quarterback. That has to improve as well too. because you can't cover. And to the defensive back's credit, you can't cover someone all day. You have to generate some type of pass rush. So that has to improve. Also, defensive back Sean Abuhoff is a real good player back there in that secondary. 3 interceptions last season, but they need help across the board on defense.
And now for our Ivy League preseason predictions, Offensive Player of the Year. Who are you going to take?
I'm going to take Jordan Calbreth, running back Princeton. I'm always going to go with that guy that's consistent. He's a consistent playmaker for those guys, and look for him with that veteran offensive line to get more yards and touchdowns this season.
I'm hiding my sheet next time. I agree with him. Jordan Colbreth will be the man in Princeton, the running back. Defensive side of the ball, I mentioned it. Player of the Year, mine is Jake Luco, linebacker for Penn.
I'm going to go with Lou Miller, defensive end, Columbia. You heard it here first, guys. He's going to make a lot of people forget Marcellus Wiley out there in Manhattan, playing ball for the Columbian Lions. I like Lou Miller. He's an outstanding playmaker, real good talent.
And for our conference winner, who are you taking?
I'm going to go with Penn. I think Penn is going to figure out what's going on at receiver and offense. So I think they're going to improve their passing game. I think Penn could take it this year. They have the best defense, I think, in the Ivy League.
Let's go with Tim Murphy's Harvard Crimson. I'll take him.
So you're taking Harvard. I'm taking Penn. So I think with Penn, defense wins overall. I don't know. But we'll revisit it later on the season.
Watch out for Princeton.
Watch out for Princeton. Yale, if they could figure out what they're going to do on offensive line, they could make some noise too. But I'm going with Penn.
Harvard got the offensive line that will be very formidable. And for more FCS breakdowns and previews, visit footballgameplan.com/smallcolleges.